Hi guys, I'm Dave, for those of you that don't know me, and today I'm going to be answering the questions that you guys have put forward to me over the last coming weeks. As you know, I'm a very busy person. I don't like answering emails, I don't like answering the phone. I like to see you in front of me. So if you'd like a build, please come and see me, arrange your time with me. I do give my mobile number out or WhatsApp. I'll be honest, emails just drain me, and I normally look at the most important one and then get distracted and so on and so on. Anyway, so if you want my attention, drop a question, show some interest, and come and see me. Anyway, let's get started.
Okay, so this is in response to our Don't Get Pumored video. Will the TDI 200 or 300 bolt onto the 6-speed gearbox of the Puma? Because I have a good 200 TDI but a bad 2.4 Puma.
So there is a company, I think it's MD Engineering, that did do an adapter plate to the, I think it was 300. I don't know if they've done one to 200, but I can check that out for you. But unfortunately we don't do it and we haven't done it, but I do like the sound of it because it's what we're about. It's putting reliability back into Defenders.
This is in relation to the video we did with Gwyn when we handed it over to him. So somebody says that's a nice conversion. Are you planning to install anything to protect the front-mounted winch?
It's a tricky one. So when you fit things like winches, you can fit protection for protection. But what I do push with my clients, and those of you that are my clients know that I do not like things blocking my radiators. Radiators have a purpose. I hate spotlights in front of them because it basically deflects nice cool air to keep them cool, to keep air density cool, etc. So I don't recommend it, and to be fair, he's going to do some damage if he breaks that winch because there's steel in front of it.
A little bit of feedback, maybe a question. This is in relation to, I think, last week's Q&A, Holly or ORE lights. Somebody's put, also consider banging headlights from Australia.
Can't say I've seen them, but I'll definitely check them out, thank you.
Does anyone make a coil spring chassis for the series Land Rovers?
Oh yes, we did do one some time ago. It's something like bespoke chassis, but I don't think they're still trading. But if I find out for you, I'll have a little look later and I'll get back to you. Designer chassis, I think that was the one.
Oh yeah, actually somebody's put a comment below. Actually, yeah. James McCoke, so it has replied to that. Designer chassis used to do them. There we go. Dave, when will the Series 3 suspension be ready for sale?
Right, so we've had to pause that one because I had a fright from the shock manufacturer. They wanted me to order, I think it was like 2,000 units, and I was like, no chance. But do show an interest, guys. If I do have probably 100 people, I will push a decent order through. You've got to remember, it's to produce something and develop something, it costs a lot of money, and it's got to be worth my while, or there's no point in doing it. But we are working on shocks currently with King USA. So for those of you that want the best of the best, we are working on something, so stay tuned.
Now, it's a bit of a throwback because this is a comment on episode 53, which is probably a couple of years ago. The title of that was Defender LS3 V8 Road Testing. If I show you it, you see the thumbnail there. It's that video, whatever that was. And the question is, what is the budget on a car like this, and how did you handle the Swiss export-import of the car? Although that might be two different.
Yeah, so I think that was a guy that was asking about, he must think that the car went into Switzerland. It didn't actually go into Switzerland. There was a Swiss car featured in that was a stock Puma that we worked on. But I would love to be able to get around the Swiss thing because I do have a lot of clients that are Swiss. But unfortunately, you guys are governed by your lovely government who don't let you mess about with engines, etc. So unfortunately, I can't help you there.
So the original question though on that was, what's the budget on a car like this? And I think that was the LS3 V8.
I'd budget probably, I think the donor car was about 40,000 and the engine swap we charged 55,000 plus VAT for. So you're knocking on the doors of 100k.
Now, a little bit of feedback from me. If anybody's posting a question, please can you keep them fairly concise because this is a bit of a read. So, hi Dave, I'm looking at buying a tidy 2004 to 6 TD5 XS90 and I've got a few options in my price range with the different chassis conditions. With the intention of booking whatever I buy in for chassis treatment, if given the choice, would you prefer to see a factory painted chassis with little crust or one that theoretically looks tidier but has coating on it?
So it's a tough one. What I don't like is when clients bring cars to me when they're covered in wax oil because we have to physically scrape it off, then steam clean it, then chemical it and everything. I'm all about, so to answer your question in brief, please bring me one with factory paint with, I don't care how rusty it is, we will blast it off.
Hi Dave, I'm based in South Africa doing the M57 E60 iron block conversion. I want to ask for the 6HP26 auto conversion. Does it require the transmission computer or is this straight to the engine ECU?
So the 6 HP brain is actually inside the gearbox itself. That does talk to the factory ECU, and I'll be honest, that's probably the simplest swap out there. Get in touch with like Will or Tom, those guys at House of Talk. They will help you out with a loom, and I believe Will does a really neat connection between the two of them. If you get stuck, give me a shout.
Do you prefer an M57 over a GM V8 for most cases?
Horses for courses. If I had my own fuel supply that was free, I would run around everywhere in an LS3 because they're just so much fun. The noise, the reaction from people, and just the outright naughtiness is fun. But horses for courses, if you sit in front of me and say, Dave, I use the car every day, I will sell you an M57. Unless you own BP or Shell. If you want to use a car, let's say, of a weekend or an odd shoot or things like that, an LS3 is the one. But for an overland car, a daily car, a working car, and a grafter, M57 hands down, guys. It is my go-to engine of choice.
I've noticed in Project Christine that you've got the traditional bulkhead and dash. Are there some nice dash and interior upgrades available utilising the older style bulkhead with the manual air vents? Most of the top end builds seem to have the Puma bulkhead. Secondly, is a usable heater achievable with the traditional bulkhead? Interesting.
So the reason, hold off on that one because Cagney is very, very posh inside, and that is a TD5 XS bulkhead, so electric windows, upgraded centre dash, etc. And what we've done with that, we've used Alcantara with a beautiful overlay brown stitch to contrast the seats, etc. And that is going to be a very elegant / modern TD5 dash. So we are doing them. It's just popularity. Puma seem to be our go-to, and I'll be honest, I just like the fact they all work. Like, you're working on old, it's like push-pull mechanical cables, which are frustrating because they slip and they slide. It's not like a light switch on-off. But they're simple, they work, but it goes back to reliability where you hear me bang on about manufacturers are not building the quality switches and parts like they used to.
And is the usable heater achievable with the traditional bulkhead?
I'll be honest, I've seen many people just service them, send them away to any motor rebuilders and they can rebuild them, or you can buy a brand new blower heater box from Britpart. I think they're like £550. You literally bolt it in, plug it in, and it's like new. So just remember, guys, they're probably gutless because if your car's done 100,000 miles, who's to say some farmer hasn't sat in the field for 5 hours with the engine ticking over with the heater blowing? High possibility.
Well, apparently this could be a Land Rover first. I've always had a question on the Defender rear seat posture, which no one has been able to address. Now, you'll notice that the rear seat passengers aren't able to slide their feet under the driver or passenger seat as there's an obstruction bar that runs across the lower end of the B pillar. Is it possible to cut off this obstruction as to allow better legroom, especially for taller passengers? I've not seen anyone do this.
So, you've not seen anybody do it because if you remove that, you're actually losing the whole structure of the B-post, if you like. It could be achieved by attaching the B-post to the chassis, but then you would probably have... it's a lot of work, basically, for... yes, you would gain a lot of leg room underneath it. Another thing I saw the other week was actually a person that they lowered the footwell in it down to the chassis. I think they gained probably 30 mil, but 30 mil is 30 mil. So...
Dave, I'm sold on your M57 conversion, but after seeing the rebuilt 300 TDI with some upgrades in the VNT turbo, I just wondered how the performance of the 300 TDI compares to the M57. I'm looking to gain more power, torque on windy hilly roads and a smoother ride. BMW will probably tick all the boxes, but love the simplicity and reliability of our current 300 TDI.
Very tough one, guys. So a lot of people freak out when they see the BMWs, but I'll tell you this now, I'm probably on number 50 engine conversions, maybe more. We've never, ever had an M57 not start. We've had fuses blow, swap a fuse, it starts. We've had things like fuel pumps trip fuses, fuel pumps play things, but the mechanicals of the engine have never not started. And just look at the comments below, guys. People have got 200,000 mile E46s. We had a guy the other day that called me and he wasn't even interested in 4x4s. He just wanted to tell me that his, I think it was an X5, had done 430,000 miles and he uses it for hauling cattle back into a place. And I was like, there you go. Jump on my YouTube and drop that comment because that's what I want to hear. The reliability, the functionality, and they're just great. They do great miles per gallon. It's like when I went to see Gwyn in Anglesey the weekend, we actually jumped in his Defender, we went for some fish and chips on the beach, had a bit of a catch up, and he said to me, he said, Dave, I love this car. It's actually, I think he said it returns like 33 to the gallon, something like that. And it's impressive when a customer tells you more than you know. Like, I haven't got a chance to drive an M57 every day because we're busy building them. But when a client tells you the feedback, that's fantastic in my opinion.
Right, a really good link onto this one as well. How often do you recommend to change the oil on an M57? And do you recommend 5W40 A3B4 spec oil instead of 5W30C3 as there is no DPF filter?
So that's a funny one. So we've been using Miller's oil. I can't remember the grade exactly. I'll post that on Instagram or YouTube later on. But we've been using this new Miller's, I want to say Nano Drive or something like that, and it's fantastic. It literally quietens the tone of the engine. You can hear the chain less. And we actually had a client the other day, said, Dave, he said, I've noticed that he's got a Dakota cluster, and he said to me, he said he's noticed that his oil pressure is higher throughout the rev range when it's warmer. And I said to him, I said, what are you complaining about? And I said, that's fantastic. And I said, but it's proof in the pudding how good the oil is, viscosity over temperature, etc.
And how often do you recommend to change it?
So I recommend 6,000 miles, but the Miller's oil is not cheap. So 10,000 miles bare minimum, guys. But if you're like me, I like to drop oils minimum 6,000 miles because I don't do that many miles a year. But for those of you that are motorway sluggers, if you know you're not hard on your engine, 10,000 miles a year.
Is the high-low diff lock linkage for the 8 HP only struggling for one with my 6 HP? I think they're saying, is the high-low diff lock, is it just, is it the same? And do you use the Disco 2 cable shift?
So we have had a lot of experience with the Disco 2 cable shift. Very easy, guys. You just got to make a nice solid mount for it because it is quite a tricky thing. But the trick is to have the car moving, as you're trying to slot it in instead of trying to move fixed gears. If you get the vehicle just doing a couple of miles an hour, it will go in or go forward and backwards. It will clock in a lot easier. The cable shifter is super easy. That's what we've just fitted in Cagney. Works well.
I think you've already done this one, but when will the Series 3 Bilstein stuff be available to order?
Yeah, so that goes back to it, guys. So I need interest. So send me, a genuine question or a genuine email and share your interest, guys, and I will make it happen.
I love these videos, first off. Second thing, can this be done in a D2 in the States? Prefer an automatic, but otherwise I enjoyed these. And that's in relation to the M57 Power for Your Defender, a comprehensive swap guide.
Yeah, so Discovery 2, we're yet to do one, guys. We have got a Discovery 2 booked in for a chassis swap. Not an M57, unfortunately. I don't think I can stretch him to that because he's like a farmer, local kind of guy. But there's no reason why not. If it can be fitted in a Defender, guys, it can be fitted in a D2. No problem.
Another long one. Whilst I appreciate the Land Rover's Defenders are your bread and butter, so to speak, and whilst they are basically a big boys Meccano set with seemingly endless business opportunities, but would you entertain Discovery 3 or 4 engine conversions, especially as the sizable age of the Ford Lion engine seems to fail?
So there's a firm no on that, guys. I have owned both cars, and when they broke down, I hated working on them. I hated trying to fix them, and I hated trying to fault find on them. Injectors fail. Hence, the engines are just toffee and just rubbish. A couple of my friends did convert one to an M57. Integration of the clocks and the camber system is just a no-go and just a ticking time bomb. And what I hate about them vehicles is that when you separate the body from them, you're upsetting all those electrical plugs. And I can almost guarantee you, and I'm sure mechanics alike watching this will back this up, once you've undone them plugs, you will have another problem. And give you an example, I did one body off to change, I think it was a link pipe on the back of the engine on a TDV6. And 2 weeks later, client calls me and he's like, Dave, my air suspension is now faulty. Dave, my rear lights are now blinking. And that was enough for me. I was like, nada.
Ben and I took Maro's 90 over to Wales once that was finished, and we did a video on that a few months ago, and somebody's posted great content on this episode. I'm getting some great ideas for our refurb. The question referenced the 3-stage chassis treatment. Would you still do this process on existing galvanised chassis, or is this just recommended on unprotected mild steel chassis?
So we have actually got a car booked in that's a galvanised chassis, and he wants the paint process, so it's a bit cheaper. So if you've got a galvanised chassis, we will not blast it because we will end up blasting the galvanise off, which is the expensive bit that you originally paid for. But what we are happy to do is to get it up on our forklift, up in the air, steam clean it, acid wash it, bring it back to like raw galvanise if you want, and then we treat it with a T-wash, which basically etches the galvanise. Then we prime it, then we second coat it. Anywhere underneath the body that obviously isn't galvanised, because your body cannot be galvanised because no one does that. We will paint that and we will blast that area if required, obviously depending on what your budget is, and we can paint it, no problem.
One of our most popular videos on the channel is the full build that we did on the restoring the XMOD Land Rover. I can't remember the name of it. Rodent?
Yes.
Yeah, Rodent. So the video about Rodent. Nice job. I've been running 110s in the desert since the 80s. A couple of questions. What have you got in the rear diff? Did you put an ATB in the centre diff? And are you running a cooler for the gearbox? And then secondly, did you upgrade the fuel filter separator? And how much fuel can you carry? Sorry, there's a few questions.
Right, interesting. So I'll start with the diffs. Yes, there's an ATB in the front, ATB in the transfer case, and an ATB in the rear. Ratty is a good friend of mine who owns it, Rob Tasker, and basically we wanted to be able to drive across the desert, not worrying about putting air lockers in, not worrying about losing traction, and just go flat out whilst drinking beer and having a good time. And basically that car had a factory fuel tank. I can't remember the exact range now. I need to write these things down because my memory is just crammed. But I remember some days we go across Morocco, like travelling maybe 150 kilometres in a day, and we never fueled up. So maybe the next day we put fuel in, but we always carried a couple of jerry cans for that what if scenario, if anything happened, punctured the tank, etc. What was the other
Did you
one?
run a cooler for the gearbox?
Yes, so when it was a TDI with an R380, we had an oil cooler because we found on the long hauls the footwells were sweating.
And did you upgrade the fuel filter straight separator?
Yes, so underneath Ratty's is basically a water strainer, fuel cleaner with a nice big clear glass bowl. I think we stole it off a Komatsu digger, something like that. And then we're running twin pumps, and we had twin pumps with twin valves. And actually Ratty said to me the other day, he said when his mechanic was looking underneath it on his MOT, he went, what's the twin red levers for? Something you normally see on a big hydraulic pump station. And we fitted those two, one to be an isolator to stop someone stealing his car by isolating the fuel pumps. And we've got twin Bosch fuel pumps underneath there, twin fuel cut-offs, and obviously twin banks of relays. So the idea was if we ever lose one fuel pump, we pull the fuse out of one and put it into another one, and we can be back on our way without having to plumb, mess about with fuel pumps.
Would you consider an engine from a Volvo D5 to a Defender?
Definitely, yeah. So a couple of my friends actually raced those in the Ultra 4-wheeled and have had great feedback with them. Unfortunately, I'm investing my time into the B58 for those of you who are keen to find out what's going to happen with that, and it is going to happen very soon. It's just time, guys. We're slowly running out of it. So keep tuned, but we will be playing about with other motors in the near future.
So this is the last question for this episode. Dave, I can't decide which Defender 90 to get. Problem we all have. If you had £25,000 max, what would you do? A TD5, TDCi, upgrade, update to an older one, and what's the maximum spend possible? I'm bringing it your way, so any advice would be appreciated.
So has he already got a Defender?
No, so I think the question is if you've got 25 grand to spend, which one would you get?
Ooh. So I would say your best bang for buck is a TD5, maybe a nice 90 or a 110. You can pick them up for 10 to 15k for a nice one. Bring it to me, maybe have the chassis treated, get it mechanically sound first. Like, forget about upgrades, get it mechanically sweet and reliable for you. Maybe give the engine a really good overhaul, maybe some nice seats so you can actually enjoy it. I mean, that's a bit of comfort, and definitely a shock upgrade.
That's it for this episode, if you want to do an outro.
So thanks again for watching, guys. It's been great hearing about what you want to know from myself and tips and trips. And please show a little bit of appreciation and share this channel because I don't get paid for it, guys. I'm doing this, the goodness of my heart and the goodness of my time, which is very precious, which brings me on to I need to go and finish this other job. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.